Today I'm going to show you mattress stitch, which is a seaming technique that is often used for putting together two pieces of knitting. Before I start showing you the sewing part, I just want to go over some details, sort of the anatomy of a piece of knitting. These swatches are both stockinette stitch, and I haven't treated the edge stitches any differently than the rest of the stitches. Sometimes you slip the first stitch on knitting, but in this case I did not. So this is the edge right here is the first row of stitches, or the first column of stitches, and then this one that's kind of obvious on the front of this swatch right here is actually the second column of stitches. We're going to be working in the ridge right in between the one that's on the face and the one that's on the edge. And then there's, on this blue swatch, you can see the one that's obviously a column here is actually the second column of stitches. The first one is under here along the edge. It's kind of curled around to the side. So we're going to work in the space between the one that's curled around the side and this one that's obviously facing forward. Okay, and the other part that I want to point out to you is in this ridge between the two, if I was to stretch it out, you can see there are sort of ladder stitches that run horizontally. These rows of, let me see if I can style my needle behind here. You might be able to see them well. Yeah. So you can see there are these rows that kind of run across from one stitch to the next stitch. That's what we're going to use to sew the two pieces together. So I just want you to be aware of what you're looking for. It's this sort of railroad track of stitches running between the two columns of your knitting. Okay, so I've got a darning needle threaded up with some contrasting yarn just so that it will be easier for you to see what where the stitches are going that I'm using for sewing. And you would want to have something that's probably multiple plies of wool, and something that's either the same weight as what you're sewing together or a little bit lighter will be fine too. So begin by coming up. It doesn't matter which one you start on, which side, but come up from behind in the very first stitch. So if I stretch this knitting out, you can see the holes, and I'm going to come up right in this first opening in the corner. Pull through and leave about a 6-inch tail is fine. Then you're going to go over to your other piece and kind of eyeball where the corner is. This is the second column, so I'm just going to go in between the second and the first column in the very first stitch. If I bring that up close, you might be able to see, yeah, there's the hole, and there's the first horizontal piece of knitting. So this time I'm going to come from the front and come underneath two of those horizontal bars on this side. You can see my needle is right in between the first stitch and the second stitch. So you pull that through, and then when you come back to this side, the pink side, you're going to go down from the front into the same hole that you came out of first. Go underneath two runners, staying in that ridge. So there are the two pieces that are going across my needle. So you go down and then you come up. And I'm going to leave this loose so you can see the structure of the sewing stitch. So now we've gone down and up in the pink side. We're going to go over to the blue side, go down into the same opening that we came out of, and then come back up, and then I'm going to have 2 bars on top of my darning needle. Pull that through. And then back to the pink side, go down again from the hole that I came out of, and then up with 2 runners over the top of the darning needle. And then you can see how this is kind of running back and forth. Tight here, open here, tight here, open here, just back and forth. And then one more time, back down here where you came out of on the blue side, and then 2 runners, come back out and pull that through. Now, I just want to show you what's going to happen. After you do back and forth 2 or 3 times, then what you can do is just hold on to this tail from the beginning and gently tug on your working thread, and you'll see that those 2 edges come in together, and they're just kind of right next to each other, like so. And on the flip side, you can see here is the edge, stitch number 1, all the way up your swatch, and this beginning part here is what we've sewn together so far. And on this side you can see our sewing stitches, and on this side you can see the sewing stitches. It's just gathering up that first column of stitches as a seam, but you don't see the stitches on this side. Well, and so just to continue, if you pull your swatches a little bit apart, you can stretch them right there in the V, and you can see where your sewing yarn came out of. It's right here, and it just came out from here. So you'll go back, pick up 2 strands on this side, pull it through, and then back to the blue side, pick up 2 strands on this side. Back to the pink, and so on. So that's about 2. Let's go one more time over here. There. And then, again, hold your tail and pull your sewing end like so. And if you pull slowly, you can kind of see these start to merge together, and you can control how tightly you pull them together and how smushed together they become. They could be, I think, too tight sometimes. These might be bordering on a little bit tight. But if it does get that way, before you go too much further, just give it a little pull out like this to get it to relax. And once you get an eyeball on how you want it to look down here, then you can proceed and try to keep it at that same tension. Now, when I pulled this apart, you could see, because my sewing yarn is a contrast color, you can see it, but normally you won't be able to see it at all. Okay, and so then you just keep on going all the way up to the top, and you weave in your ends. So that is mattress stitch. Now I'm going to talk about seaming together using mattress stitch again, but this time your knitting pieces might be attached at the top of the piece, so that this is normally how your knitting is oriented. But for instance, on the top of a shoulder, you might want to sew these 2 edges together. So the process is the same. The anatomy is a little bit different, because this is a bind-off edge right here, and here's the other bind-off edge. They look a little bit different just because one's going one way and the other is going the other way. Down here is your cast-on edge, And that looks a little bit different too, but we're not going to sew those together. We're going to sew together these bound off edges. For instance, if you were building a shoulder. All right, so again, you're going to come up from behind this first V there of your bind off. So that's the first stitch that you pulled over the second stitch. So you come up from the bottom of that and again leave a tail. Then you're going to go down. This time you're going to go down into the last V that you can see that jumped over your very last stitch. So you're going to go into that one like that, and then come back up again in the second one. So that's this one here. Pull that through like so. All right, oops, here's my tail. Okay, so up from this side, down and up on the blue side. Again, you're going to go back to the same opening you started at on the one side, pick up that V, and then come up under the next one. So, on the other side, you're going to go down where you came out most recently on that side and come up under the next one. Now, this one doesn't have the runners, the sort of ladder that we used on the mattress stitch on the side-by-side. This is actually a whole stitch that you're kind of scooping up. You can see there's the V right there. It's crowded, but it's there. So you can see how this column of stitches here ends up in that stitch right there. And we're picking that up, but I think visually it's easier to eyeball these bound off stitches along the very top edge. So I think that's what you should use to look at. So we went down and out here, and then we'll go down on the other side where we came out and up right there, picking up the two V's of the bound off edge. Once again over to the blue side, down where we came up and up under the next V, like so. And then when you are ready to tug it, you hold the tail and you gently pull your sewing wool like so, and they join up like that. So ideally your columns of knitting, row 1, row 2, row 3 will sort of line up there. And then if you stretch it out, you can see where you came from last is right here. And then you come up the next one. To the other side. After 2 or 3 of those, pull this again and they will come together. So then I'll show you the back side of this one too, so you can see how that looks. So those are the 2 bind off edges here, and this is where the 2 bind off edges merge together because you've used the mattress stitch to combine them, like so. So that's mattress stitch on the outside edges and on the top edges. Okay, so here at the end of the mattress stitch, I just want to show you how to finish off the end. So I've got a couple more stitches to go. The tension on the pink swatch is a little bit bigger than the blue, but the number of rows I know matches. So I'm going to go back on this side, get the last 2 runners there, and go back to the blue side, and on the blue side I don't think I have 2 runners left. So what I'm going to do is just go down in the same hole that I came out last on the blue side, tug the seam together so that it looks nice. Then the yarn is coming from the back side now. So what I then do is secure this by coming back across to the pink side, go through the edge stitches on both pieces, straight across and then straight through, pull it like so, and tug it like this. Do that one time, and then I use that piece that's going across the top here to secure my end. So I go through it. Before this loop closes down, I put my needle through the loop and pull. It makes a knot like so, and then you just weave in your end along your selvage here like so. And that's your mattress stitch. Thank you.